Okay, we are recording. Stephen, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Yeah, fitting well, I think.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I appreciate your time today, mate.
Pleasure.
Um, I'm going to get you to kick off today's playlist, mate, with the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Well, it's extremely difficult, but the one that came to mind, which is probably not expected, is "Fight the Power," Public Enemy. I think the first time I heard that, and particularly in the uh, Spike Lee movie, I think it's one of those massively powerful things with him when he's walking along with the boombox, and I think it's just that's the one that I immediately went to, even though there's probably guitar riffs and blah blah blah, but it's just talking at the beginning, and it's fantastic.
Stephen, I can't thank you enough for picking this, mate.
Oh, cool.
On episode 100 of this,
Yeah,
I got my mate to interview me about what my picks would be,
yeah,
and I chose Fight the Power.
brilliant.
um, purely because of Rosie Perez dancing at the beginning
Yeah,
of Do the
absolutely.
Right Thing as well, and
Yeah,
just and no one ever leans on hip hop for this. Everybody goes for these huge kind of either like sort of long drawn out sort of Floyd type intros, or some
yeah,
people just go Beatles help, bang straight in, and it's like
yeah,
hip hop's got so many instantly incredible intros that then
yeah,
breaks and beats, and obviously the big speech at the beginning of Fight the Power before it drops. Oh, mate, I'm so glad you chose that because it's
yeah.
like, the first person to choose hip hop, and there's over 500 of these now, mate.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. It's really funny on another thing with like intros for stuff. I remember when I was first doing demos on cassettes and being told by people in the business and people that worked in the lead mill actually was my manager in Sheffield. And he said the people just listen to music companies, they just listen to the first 2 seconds and that's it. It's in the bin. It's on the, it won't get put on the slush pile or the pile that they would actually
Yeah.
reconsider. So that's always in my head as well. But I mean, that does it in two seconds as well. This song.
It's so weird what you just said there as well, because I think again, when you were sending them demos out, I was doing exactly the same, and I had that kind of heads up as well. And in the end, I'll put this like little cassette in a fucking great big box and send it
Yeah,
anything to try and get to the top of this
yeah, brilliant.
pile.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's well, look on intros, Stephen. When you was first making music, the way that people would generally listen to it would have been, I guess, the goal would have been to have got on radio and to have, to got out and release records and CDs, and now it's so much different in the way that so
mm,
many people consume music via things like Spotify, where it's
yeah,
awash and flooded with
yeah,
so much music. And I'm watching the way that my children consume their music now, where they'll get music from things like TikTok and things like that,
mm,
where their thumbs are like so quick.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And how much of like the sort of movements in music and the fact that, I guess with commercial pop records now, it's becoming like this 2 minute science of like, we've only got their attention for this, and we need to get on this Spotify place. So it's got to be like start with the chorus and all of these
Yeah.
kind of cheats that isn't almost a science to it. And how many of these sort of changes and places where people consume the music, how much of that
Mm.
filters through into your creative process now, if at all?
Well, I'm the same with my kids. My kids are exactly the same. So it's the thumbs that are whizzing and down
Yeah.
the glass. It's like it's no, I just think it's weird that people don't pay for music. So you have these YouTube subscriptions and all these things, but they just watch it and they don't pay for anything. And TikTok's a good example, but TikTok is kind of like the 20-second clip, isn't it?
Mm.
Which on top of some crap, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but I've heard a lot of things on TikTok. There's a lot of hip hoppy stuff on TikTok that's used, and I'll suddenly Shazam it, and then I'll be listening to that. So I do.
Yeah.
There are good experiences on that. But it's probably not answering your question, but I think I do the same thing, and I'm of a certain age where I can't preach to how kids should listen to music. That's just the way it is. They don't buy
Yeah.
music anymore. I think maybe indie kids might go into record stores and buy vinyl and stuff,
Yeah.
but obviously that happens. But I always used to thumb through the NME or Sounds or Melody Maker, and I would look for a song that or a band and read about them. I do the same thing on iTunes and probably even Amazon and different places. You know, I look, even though all the things on the front page have been put up by record companies, so they've been, you know, it's money and they've been put on the front page. But I'll go a bit deeper than that. I'll look in alternative. I'll look in classic, anything. I'll look, and that's still hasn't changed. I'm just doing it on a screen. I'm not doing it in a newspaper, which is sad, but it's also kind of like the way I find music.
And we're going to talk today also. There's a reissue of Ugly Beautiful coming soon.
Yeah.
So when you was writing that, would the goal have been to get on Peel, to get on the evening session, and to try and sort of get through that kind of thing, and would that factor into how you?
I think at that point I started off by I did 5 lo-fi albums, and we released them in a year, so they were all on cassettes, and there were 400 originally, and I took enough to put on 5. So we had 2 years of flogging that round record companies before we got any interest. So I think suddenly when that kind of formed a band, and then we went on to do Ugly Beautiful. But I think that's when it kicks in, that you suddenly realize, well, other people, your record company, are gearing you towards, you know, doing sessions and stuff. And we did Mark Radcliffe and Lard and all these people, and Mark Lamar even. So that's something that just becomes part of the machine. You do it, and then luckily we enjoyed all those. We if that makes sense, we loved doing those sessions, being in a room with Mark and Lard, and sort of with a drummer in the corner and just having a laugh. It was fantastic. So that was a real pleasure. But that again is something that's organized for you. But before, I was doing albums which I did myself, and led on to this.
I know, if I'm right, that it was originally recorded prior to the record, but am I right in saying, because it was my introduction to you, I've DJ'd in an alternative club for the last 30 years, Stephen.
Oh yeah,
and the first 7 I got yours was Goodnight.
Yeah.
And was that the lead single from the record?
That was the one. I mean, I just love that song. I mean,
it's an absolute gem of a pop record, mate.
Yeah, I think just the words in that, you know, it's fantastic. Yeah, no, I'm very proud of that, and I'm really glad that You're Gorgeous was not the first single, because I mean, again, everything that went after that was, you know, the record companies were trying to chase that. They wanted to repeat that. But Goodnight was the Mark and Lard thing. That's where we'd be in the studio for the first time. And I'd never experienced that in my life. So that's the one I remember, that first one.
Yeah. Was that chosen as the lead single because it's such a cracking little pop gem?
I think and it was also on those first 5 albums in a different form.
Yeah.
So I think record company, again, you know, it was a joint thing with the record company. It was good. We were never told what to do, but it felt like it was a good leap from my little lo-fi recordings into Goodnight, and it's great, and it's under 3 minutes, I think, or roughly around 3 minutes. So it's the classic kind of pop song thing.
I'm going to ask you for track 2, please, to tell me the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Well, I mean, there's going to be thousands, but it's just immediately what came to me directly was Ghost Town by the Specials, I think. And I think I actually knew Terry Hall a bit. I'd met him in various places in Manchester, and we always planned that we would do something at some point, because he has a connection with Ian Brody as well, who I think they've written together, and I've written a few songs with Ian. So. And just obviously what's happened, you know, is terrible. He popped up on my Facebook the other day, and just with my dad, who's died recently, and it's all these people have come up, and it's that's kind of maybe what the thing about Ghost Town. And Ghost Town, again, the video and everything, the kind of bleakness, and to have songs like that in the charts is what's needed. Give a balance.
And you know, I imagine at quite a young age you would have been when Ghost Town come out.
Yeah.
Like, was you aware? You know, we look back now on documentaries around, you know, the late 70s and early 80s, and it's so apparent how fucking bleak everything was.
Yeah.
Was you aware of that at that time? Did that music soundtrack what you could see?
Well, I hadn't been to Coventry at that point, but I did go to Coventry once, and it's bleak.
I'm going tomorrow, bizarrely.
Are you going? Yeah, we had a really bizarre meeting, because we got signed by Atlantic in America, and they decided they wanted to come and see us in Coventry. So it's quite an
Right.
eye opener for all these wanky Americans. But yeah, no, I lived, you know, I kind of lived near Derby, so I used to go in on my with my friend Ralph. We used to cycle in and go and see the UK subs, and Antipasti was the local Derby, and Joy Division, of course. So
Yeah.
so I knew what it was like. Derby's was bleak. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
like now, but I certainly was fully aware of. And then the bleak vision of Joy Division, which is my main into music.
Yeah.
So it's all there, and it's kind of like, but the Specials was such a happy band, and it was multicultural, and the whole thing was quite brilliant. And I took my sister when she was 15 or something. I took her to see when the Specials, Selector, and Madness were on, and it
What, the
was
two-tone
brilliant.
tour?
It was brilliant. So Toy
Yeah.
Bleakness, it was very kind of sort of on the verge of violence
Yeah.
there. My sister reminded me that I buggered off with my friend and left her there as a 15-year-old for periods of time. So I feel bad about that. But yeah, it was quite scary, I think. That was
Yeah.
before, you know, they started having hits, but you can see where it was all coming from.
And he was such a statement as well. It was like I was a little while ago. I got to interview Robin from UB40, and I was
Mm.
looking at, you know, you look at that point of the like late 70s, early 80s, and UB40, them records at that point, and and the Specials, like that was probably the first time I'd ever seen multicultural bands
Yeah,
on Top of the Pops and things like
yeah.
that. It was quite a statement, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. UB40 is a good example of. I don't think if you know the whole history of UB40, I think a lot of people say, "Oh, red wine," and it's very popular, but it wasn't. They was kind of same kind of background as, you know, all the Specials and all the ska
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, no, totally agree.
And he said that as well. He said that Jerry Dammers offered him a deal, and
Oh right, okay, yeah.
yeah, and he said, look, as much as we love that label,
Mm.
it we wanted to be a reggae band. We didn't want to be a ska
Yeah,
band, and so
yeah, yeah,
we you know, we politely sort of turned that down.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going back to Ghost Town, and the question around it, if you had to sort of pinpoint the emotion, what would it have been?
The emotion I had,
Yeah,
oh, I think it's music that I would never dare to make because you know, normal English. I don't know. It's just something that I could never do, and it's a bit like hip hop. I could never do hip hop, but it's that's I like that. That's why I like that kind of music. I don't really like music that sounds like Babybird. If that makes sense. I wouldn't listen to similar stuff that we make, even though there's a big range of styles now with what I do. But um, I, I just think Terry Hall was a beautiful man, and I think is it Neville and the other guy, it was just there was just something infectious
yeah,
and very very innocent, and I think Terry Hall was like a little boy, like a baby almost,
yeah.
and singing these songs, and I think that was my feel. I just remember the tunnel. I'm sure there was a tunnel in the video,
It is, yeah.
and I think that's that kind of really. I've been in a lot of tunnels like that in Derby. I brought it back.
I think the joy in that record as well is, I mean, sonically, if that's it, you know, for a bit of a wanky description of it, it's otherworldly, that record, isn't it? It don't
Yeah,
sound like any other Special song either.
yeah.
It's just out there on its own, and it's so somber, and then you're just waiting for that moment where it
Mm.
just rockets, doesn't it? And it's
Yeah.
a pure joy when it goes as well.
Oh,
And the
yeah.
fact Terry
Yeah.
nearly cracks a smile in that video as well, it's
Yeah.
like wonderful.
I think it's the movement, and when they do it
Mm,
live, just the back and forward. I don't know. It's just like an engine, and I think
yeah,
that's what was so brilliant about seeing them as well, doing everything else. And it was,
yeah,
you know, Madness had their thing, which
yeah.
and Selector, and then it was very very particular, really good.
I think one of the things that jumped at me as a young lad as well, watching the likes of Specials, Madness, UB40 at that point, them three bands, they looked like a fucking gang. They all look like they
Oh
were in a
yeah, yeah,
gang, and
yeah.
I love that in bands. When you see them and you just think, yeah, they all look like
Yeah,
you
that's the
wouldn't
whole
want
point, isn't it? That's
to.
why
Yeah,
you want to be in bands. It's a gang.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like football. It's a
yeah,
gang. It should be.
yeah,
You know. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, I'm going to ask you for track 3, please, Stephen. Tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school.
Yeah, well, it's probably showing my age now, but definitely Joy Division. Touched on it before, but Joy Division were my. I was. I'm old, but I was too young to kind of hit punk. So
Yeah.
at a certain point, which is a real pity, you know, the Clash and the Pistols and all that. I kind of missed that, but I was more sort of 79, 80, and it was sort of Stranglers' first album when the Stranglers were amazing. Um, and then yeah, Joy Division. Just the I played a lot of bass. I mean, I played guitar as well, but because of Peter Hook, made the bass melodic.
Yeah.
I suddenly thought, oh right, I can actually make some songs with a bass,
Yeah.
um, and I did, and did with shitty bands, you know,
Yeah.
but just again that was. Which is the one? Isolation's the one that
Mm.
might not have been, that was later, I know, but Isolation's the song that I always go to with Joy Division. It's weird because you listen back to Joy Division now, and some of it is very hard to listen to. It was
Yeah.
very much of the time. It's very, a lot of it's quite mechanical as well, which you don't
Mm.
remember. Sort of the way the drums, maybe that's on the second album, but yeah, that's that was the thing I remember, just kind of school time. Yeah.
And you said, was it Derby that you grew up in?
Yeah, well, I saw the last gig, Ian Curtis's last gig, I think was in Derby, and I managed to find a recording of it, sort of a bootleg recording of it. It's brilliant, so that you can hear the clapping. I just wonder, is one of those people clapping me, you know?
Oh, you
But
was
again,
at the show as well.
yeah, I was
Oh,
at the show, and
fantastic.
again, petrifying. It was a bit like before the Scar thing got rid of the skinhead element, which
Mm.
started. The Joy Division was the same in Derby. They were the Spondon, which is near Derby. They'd be up in. It was an old Indian cinema, and so it was like on the top there were skinheads from one part of Derby and another down there. So they were pulling up chairs, and me and my friend Ralph were hiding in the corner trying to watch Ian Curtis do his thing. But I think that was the last gig or the one before the last one that they ever did. So yeah, quite a big event in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And home in Derby in those early years, was it musical? Was there records on at home?
What do you mean? What was I listening to?
No, no, no. Like
Oh,
growing up was like, was your parents into music? Was it a musical place to
oh
grow up?
no, not really. I lived no, I lived in my earliest memories. I lived in New Zealand. I was taken to New Zealand when I was 4, and my sister was only 18 months. But we went on a boat, which you could do back then. So
To
it
New
was I
Zealand.
went to New Zealand. So we because for 50 quid, if you were a teacher and you had a job in New Zealand, you could take your family over there. So we were on a boat for a month. We travelled one way through the Suez Canal and Tahiti and Sri Lanka. I can't remember because I was so young. And then 4 years later, we came back the other way through the Panama Canal. So I've circumferenced the world, but I don't remember it. It's another. It's not me really.
Yeah.
It's something I don't remember. But my mum and dad just used to listen to Rolf Harris before Rolf became, such a or whatever. But like Timey Kangaroo Down, we had an old reel to reel, and they used to play
Yeah.
stuff like that, and then we would listen to Maori folk songs and stuff. But that's my real memory. And then getting a bit older, I would probably Bay City Rollers, which again is another dodgy.
Yeah.
So that's weird. Yeah, it's weird. You watch? I don't know if you're watching the Steve Coogan thing,
Yes. Yeah.
the Jimmy Savile.
Yeah. I
I'm
finished it
trying to
last
make a
night.
link there, but it seems like Rolf Harris, the Bay City Rollers, we did Top of the Pops once, and I always wonder if I was in a dressing room that Jimmy Savile had been in. So that's I've never thought of it like that. It's 3 very very dodgy
Well,
touch points
you've just
there.
mentioned the pops there, and I'm always fascinated to ask guests about their experience at Top of the Pops because it as I'm sure it was the case for you, we'd grow up and, every Thursday you'd watch the
Yeah,
Pops, and it
yeah,
was, it was the only place you could see your pop stars, and it was so exciting, and in my mind, like, I thought if they're on Top of the Pops, they're
mm,
all rich beyond their wildest dreams, going
yeah,
back
yeah.
to their mansions afterwards. Like, can you remember hearing you was gonna, you got the green light to go on Top of the Pops, and like, and then when you done it, was it what you imagined? Did it deliver?
No, not really. No, I remember they had a good load of pool tables backstage. That's where we had most of our fun. But
Yeah.
um, No, it's weird because it's three. But that's why I was talking about the Steve Coogan, Jimmy Savile thing, because I think you can see there it's three stages and a group of hardly any people, but it was made filmed so it looked like a load of people,
Yeah.
and they were shifted around each stage. So, but you're stood there. I think we did it 3 times. So I mimed on most of them, but I did actually sing live. So the miming business is just bizarre. It's
Mm.
a weird thing. To sing live is so much easier, but to
Yeah.
have to mime, I just, you know, like when your voice is out, when your mouth is out of, I just
Yeah.
can't mime. It's one of those things I can't do. So I'll be, when there's a silence, I'll still be moving my mouth because I'm so confused. It must be some mental condition I have. But yeah, so weird. It's weird. I think all these things are always built up, you know. And I think Top of the Pops obviously has got such a big history. I think when you go on, you think, oh, it's not quite like it was on the TV, but
Yeah.
well
Can you
worth
remember
doing. I
who
wouldn't
you,
swap it for anything, you know.
yeah. Can you remember who you was on with? Do you remember who else, like, was that
Uh,
like one of the sort of first times you sort of wandering around in those circles and going, oh,
yeah.
blimey, that's him over there or that's her over there? Like, can you remember any of those
Well,
moments of
we
it?
we had. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm name dropping, but when we were in our dressing room, we had an attack from all five Spice Girls. They came in and just dancing, full of life, amazing, really. I'll always remember it.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend, now wife, was there, so she got to experience it as well. And Mel B was very chatty, and she would talk straight to you, and it's like they came in like a whirlwind, and then they were off.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the most famous. I don't remember anyone else that was on it,
Yeah.
to be honest. Gina G or someone like that. But you'll always remember the Spice Girls. Whatever you think of their music, they were a phenomenon for that period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just moving back to school, um, was that an experience you enjoyed?
No, I was kind of bullied at school. I was kind of like, I went to a school where my dad was a teacher, and I got the nickname of Dingo because I'd been to New Zealand. I get called Dingo, and there are no dingoes in New Zealand. That's the irony. They're in Australia. So, but I couldn't really say that to the bully
Yeah.
particularly. I think it's General Haig. You remember General Haig was in the work. It was his grandson.
Yeah.
He was in World War II, I think, but his grandson was like a nasty bully. It was when I got into the sixth form, I kind of like exploded with like I was saying, my friend Ralph, we went off to this cinema in Derby and we went to see all the post punk bands, Cockney Rejects, UK Subs, all these people. And it was Throbbing Gristle was another one. It's like
Oh,
all these
amazing.
out mad bands. So I think it was great that I'd been through that kind of. I'm not damaged by bullying. I mean, it was just a horrible period, and I don't remember it
Yeah.
that much. But I just remember the sixth form being an explosion of excitement, and but not because of school, but because of
Yeah.
punk.
I think sixth form's where you kind of, because you don't have to go there. That's
Yeah,
generally where you sort of find your tribe, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it was brilliant. Everything about it was a joy.
Yeah. Did you know what you wanted to do at that point?
Just for Joy Division, probably music. But again, I was playing the bass really badly, so it wasn't. And we would go and play with my friends. But I, it was kind of when I left school that I
Yeah.
suddenly, I've never, I started doing music with Ugly Beautiful and all the stuff that I've done very late in my late 20s. So it was never something I thought I could do until people. I'm the kind of person that needs to be told, you know, oh, this song's all right. You could go and do something with that. I need to kick up the arse. So that's always been the way. So I don't think when I came out of school I had any idea what I would do
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the dole for a long time. I was on the dole for like 6 years. So living on whatever that was and stealing 50p's out the gas meter and putting them
Yeah.
back in again. And no, so I've been through all that. So I think that pushes you to do stuff, and that made me try and buy a little cassette recorder and start doing music. So I think from adversity, you get a kick up the backside, which is good.
Once you started kind of getting people sort of, leaning over your shoulder and saying that tune's really good,
Mm,
and from what I know about you, you're pretty prolific with your output. Um,
yeah,
like, did that create drive? Like, I wonder because
yeah,
we're
I think
sitting
so.
here, however many years later, talking about the reissue and and you've released so much music, you know, over the years. Like, are you pretty driven?
No, people would say I was lazy, but I think it's not something I think about. I think there's a lot of things I hate doing. You know, I don't like mowing the lawn. Um, Stuff that I just everyday stuff I don't like. But when it comes to music, my dad always had a piano in the front room, and he never pushed us towards it. But we would go. We would. I gravitated towards it. So it's never. I've never been pushed in that way, but it's just if it's there, then I do it. But I don't think I'm driven. I just love doing it. It's a hobby,
Yeah.
you know. It's not work. So does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think no, I'm not driven. I think you see so many people who are driven, and it's like I don't know. It could be anyone who seem to be doing stuff all the time. Like Michael Palin seems to be, or Michael Palin or Stephen Fry. I don't know any of these people, or people that tour. U2,
Mm,
anyone. You know, they're away for months and months. I've never done that, so
mm,
they seem to want to fill every little space with doing stuff.
yeah,
But now I'm kind of a bit older, long in the tooth. I kind of just like to sit there and do nothing, and then I'll have bursts of making music.
yeah,
But again, I'm not being driven, I don't think. I think I'm
yeah,
just like, I love doing it.
yeah. Tell me about the first record you remember buying from a record shop, please.
Oh, yes. Let me just. Oh God, yeah, that was one of the first was Never Mind the Bollocks. So I think that was just probably because I just missed out on when 76 and 77, and obviously with the Clash's first record, that was a big one as well. But my sister had that oddly, and she was like much younger than me. Um, yeah, no, just I keep listening. It's one of those things that I do keep listening to now because the production on it, without being boring and musical, is like incredible. It's just it stands up to now. Just the sound of the guitars, everything is just stunning. And I always say when we're rehearsing to go on tour, let's try and make every song sound as crisp as this and powerful.
Yeah,
So I think that was the first record. Um, but I can't really remember any singles. I used to buy singles, but it was normally LPs I'd buy. So, I mean, God Save the Queen, if you were to pick a track, would be the one that
yeah.
I would, I would put on. And yeah, yeah,
It's so weird, isn't it? When you look back at, like, you mentioned some of the sort of you mentioned like Cockney Rejects and you know, the UK Subs and the
yeah,
bands from back then, and you know, and so many bands that come out of punk and was, you know, come out around the time of the Pistols, you know, and I don't include the Clash in this, but none of them records or the production around them records still smacks you around the chops like
mm,
Never Mind the Bollocks. It's so huge and it's so good, that production in it. And I know it's,
yeah,
you know, we're being a bit muso wankery here, but it is just
mm,
fucking huge, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, it's astonishing. Yeah, I do, we do. It's probably one of the only bands we actually listen to, or I listen to copy that
Yeah,
production. That's
yeah,
obviously not the style of songs, but
yeah.
yeah, that production. Yeah.
Okay. So did you know, were record shops, you know, in them sort of formative years that you know that
Mm.
you're talking about there, were they an important place for you?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I kind of, I mean, I'm still going to them now. It's like Berries. I'm in near Manchester, so we go to Bury, and they've still got an HMV, and you kind of your eyes widen when you say, "Oh my God, it's still open," and
Yeah.
you're genuinely excited to go in. Things have changed now. There seem to be cups, don't there, and
But there's lots of
everything
records
that's
again,
not a
though.
record. Pardon?
There's lots of vinyl again, though.
That's brilliant. Yeah, but when you
Yeah,
go in, you're even like these boat drinks and stuff in the
yeah,
one in Barry. It's really weird. It's like you have to go beyond that to get. But yeah, vinyl. Yeah, vinyl's something I. It's funny. Ugly Beautiful's. It's quite a heavy vinyl. So I've got like my record players are always like dance sets. You know, like old. I
yeah.
like old record players. I actually put it on to listen to it, and it broke it. So it kind of like the turntable bit sank down. So I don't actually have a vinyl player at the moment. Don't have a record player.
Wow.
But
Well,
that's quite
so
ironic, isn't it? That this reissue broke my record. But yeah, I
is
need a record player. I love them.
is the reissue going to come out on vinyl?
It's on vinyl. Yeah, it's a double.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
so yeah, so it's a double. But yeah, I just vinyl for the last 10 years. I think I've stopped and sold a lot of my records. But just that 20 minutes you get to sit down and do nothing. It can be meditation, whatever. You just sit there and you're not actually getting up to switch stuff on your phone or Google stuff or look at all. You know, Shazam is a. I don't really use Shazam because it's insane, but it makes things too easy. But I'd rather put a record on and give myself 20 minutes.
And the one thing, and I'm always sort of mindful of not sounding like a grumpy old man, that it was better in my day. But the one thing that I do think is lost in vinyl sort of disappearing and becoming more of a sort of novelty collector's thing now.
Yeah.
Is album artwork, and we talk about the Pistols there. And, you know, that is not going to really do a lot on that little square on your Spotify thing on your phone, is it? But you look at that album on vinyl and that cover, it still knocks your socks off. And I think that's something that I feel is a little bit lost now, is the album artwork.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whenever you watch these shows or see magazines about the greatest 100 album covers of when nothing's from the last 15 years.
Yeah. No, I want that desperately, and I don't know how you do it. What's the equivalent now? If you want that artwork, do you put it on a screensaver on your phone?
I don't know.
Buy a T-shirt. I don't know. It's. I totally agree with that. Yeah. I've never really engaged that much with CDs. I mean, unless it's a cardboard thing and there's a booklet in there and there's something to read. But I think a lot of bands were responsible for using record company designers in a bland way, and that I think that it was too vague. I think you need some substance, and those are the CDs that I prefer, and albums I prefer with something to actually read on it, not just name checking people.
Absolutely. I'm going to move forward now to your clubbing days, Stephen.
Oh yeah, I did have some of those actually. Yeah,
fantastic. Let's talk about them. But I want to know what song soundtracked it.
Yeah, well, I was after I left college, I was in Nottingham. So I was saying I was unemployed for like 5 or 6 years. So it was kind of a guy called Gerald, and Voodoo Ray was the one really, I think, that stuck out. There was a lot of the kind of acid stuff. What was the first acid song? Not Adamski. I can't remember what it was called. It was like the first time you heard that sound, and it's just kind of predated the 80s a bit. I don't know what it was called.
What was it, like Joey Beltram or something like that?
I can't remember the name of it. No, I need to hunt that out. I've been looking for that song, but I can't remember what it is. But I think Voodoo Ray still sticks out now because of the sounds on it, and that's kind of has a little influence. I like using loops and sounds and odd, strange things. So that just did everything, and it was you could dance to it as well. You know, even though it was a bizarre, different song from anything else you'd heard. I think it was a lot of early Talking Heads and Chic and Chaka Khan was sort of around that time, and then to hear that was fantastic.
And where would you go clubbing? In Nottingham?
In Nottingham, and we went to again, I can't remember where the bloody hell it was. There's something Cool Cat in Nottingham. Oh, it was amazing place. But they had a hip hop room. I went back there a few years, and they had a hip hop room, and I was dancing, and this guy took offense. I found out he was a boxer, but he punched me. So I went to. I've still got the scar on this side here, on the right hand side, because he thought I was taking the piss, and I wasn't. I was just trying to dance as well as I could. But it was mostly black kids in there, so I think maybe you could be easily seen as taking the piss, and I really wasn't, because I love hip hop. So, but I ended up in hospital. So that's my memory. Apart from that song we just did, apart from Uncle Gerald,
Did you? I mean, was you lucky enough, being up that way to sort of, you mentioned Manchester a few times, and obviously Joy Division. Did you get to the Hacienda at all?
I never got to the Hacienda. No, we were going to do a gig there, really weirdly. So I got to see the Hacienda when it was empty.
Oh, really?
Really bizarre. So we actually went and got a tour of the Hacienda. But that was part of a theatre. I was in a theatre company, so we were going to do a show there, and a music show. It's not worth going into, but it was really weird, because I'd never been to the Hacienda, never been there as a club night. So I think I was in Nottingham at that point, and obviously the Hacienda's gone now; it's flat. So, But my friend Jason used to go there all the time, so I get all the stories of the
Yeah,
drugs on the door. There was a lot of security problems and guns and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the way it went.
I asked you about Drive earlier, Stephen,
Mm.
and you said that you went on Top of the Pops 3 times, and then obviously around that point you was on every TV show, you was everywhere, all
Mm.
over the music press. Um, would you say you was a confident young man at that point?
No, not at all. I think it makes you seem arrogant, but I'm really shy. But on stage, I'm a bit of a lunatic, really, and a lot of talking to the audience, and it's a kind of gregarious big thing. But I think that's a cover for shyness. So I'm definitely not. I know that my stuff's good. It well can be good. I would never say. My dad was always apologetic. He used to do paintings, and he was very apologetic. So I learned not to be apologetic for what I do. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. You know,
Yeah.
that's life, isn't it? But no. So yeah, if that answers that.
Well, what about like seeing like and I imagine you grew up reading the likes of the Enemy and the Maker and things like that, and then
Mm.
all of a sudden these people are probing you for answers and things like that, like and having chart success and being on the TV, like how did you find that?
Just weird. Like I said, I was shy, but it's a simple rule with me. If I've got a microphone, I've got lights in my face, and I can't see what's going on, then I'm fine. I've written a few books, so I've kind of done stuff in is it Borders, and it's gone now.
Mm.
But I did some book readings, and there's no lights, so I was just bright red and embarrassed to hell, and I was trying to read my novel, and I was reading the wrong words, and my eyes were like I went purple. So, but if you put lights in front of you, whether it's a TV show, and you it kind of it's great. It's like it blocks out everything, and you concentrate on what you're doing. So it's a simple thing for me, really. Put some lights on me, and don't show me the mechanics of what's going on beyond the camera.
Yeah, I'm going to take you home for this track and ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Oh, my home county. Well, I've kind of I couldn't find anything from Shropshire. So I've lived in Manchester like I do now for 10 years, and then I lived in Manchester for a long period before. I lived in London as well. So if I can stretch it to Manchester, I think Container Drivers by the Fall is
Mm,
just epic. I think it's
yeah,
just it's kind of so kind of small and but huge. And Marky Smith is fabulous. And I've been to see in Manchester. He's got a huge mural on the side of a fish and chip shop. So it's yeah, and I saw them 7 times. And I've seen gigs where he would slowly take away, if he was pissed off with the drummer, he would slowly take a cymbal away, carry on with the song, then he would take another part of the drum away. So just marvelous, and what a great man. And I was there at the beginning with Totally Wired and all their
yeah.
early stuff, and Elastic Man was it, yeah. And so I kind of they were a massive part.
He's everything you want from a pop star, isn't he? It's
Yeah,
like it's fantastic. I mean, I've heard some. I think it might have been. Was it Mark Riley? Who was in the Fall? Was it Mark
Mark
Riley?
Riley, yeah,
It
Mark Riley
was,
was
yeah.
guitar in the Fall for a while, yeah.
And I remember he said a story once about they were touring in Australia, and they were in a nightclub, and what him and someone from the band went to this nightclub, and I don't think Mark wanted to be there, but I don't think he wanted them to go and have fun without him.
Right,
And then
yeah.
they were dancing to ABBA, and
Oh God.
he just walked on onto the dance floor. It wasn't Riley he punched, but he punched the other guy for dancing to ABBA. And the guy flew home the next day and left the band. But I think that was a constant,
I think that's
never-ending
a general
rotation.
rule for anyone with concerning ABBA, surely. Bloody hell. I cannot believe that. Is it the hologram show they're doing? It's just unbelievable, but it's so popular. I think they
Absolutely.
are, along with Queen, ABBA are the antichrist of music.
Do you know what? Right, I'm not going with the ABBA thing. I do think they've got some great pop songs, but Queen, I'm with you. I don't
Yeah.
get it.
Oh, no, no, no. I'll rephrase that. I think the songs are, I think it's the love for
Right.
With Mamma Mia and the films,
Yeah.
it just seems like the lowest common denominator to me. Really,
Yeah.
I'm being really patronising, but yeah. Of course, they've got great songs.
Mm.
Fernando and Waterloo. I mean, they're good, but it's the idea of it, and I think the people that flock to it.
Yeah.
Listen to them at home, on your own, but don't put it on the TV, please.
There's Mark E. Smith when you need him. Okay, well, this is your last track, Stephen, and this is the opportunity where I ask you to tell our listeners about a song that you think they may not know that you would like them to hear, please.
Well, this is something I probably listen to like every other day. It's Lamplighter and Ed Scissor, and it's The Prospector, and I don't know if you'll be able to find it actually. I think it's on YouTube, but it's very very hard to find. I found it through Bandcamp, but he kind of talk raps through it. Is it like Scrooby? I can never pronounce Scroobius Pip. It's kind of a bit similar to that. It's
That's
sort of
quite weird. He's my best friend.
Is he your best friend? I think I might have spoken to him once. I think I wrote to him once. I don't know, through social media probably. But yeah, no, I love his stuff, and this is very very similar. But
Right.
obviously people know about him, but they don't know about Ed Scissor. I think it's Ed Scissor Tongue as well. But he seems to have a very small following. But it's The Prospector. If people can find it, it's got a really lovely piano loop on it.
Yeah.
And words are just like, it makes me shiver now just talking about them. I think it's beautiful, and his voice, his tone of his voice. Like, I always liked Guru off Gangstar, because he's got one of those. It's like an almost creamy voice. It's something that's in your head. And this Ed Scissor's like that as well. Lamplighter does a lot of I think more kind of not with vocals on, but
yeah,
it's one of those bands I'd love to know more, but I don't think anyone will have heard them, and I think it should hunt it out.
I found a track by Ed Scissor, but it was what's the track called again? Sorry,
The Prospector.
There's The Prospector 3.
Oh, it's not that one.
It's not that one.
I'm beginning to think that it was a sample, because I've tried to look for it on the and on the album I remember it being on, and it's gone. So I just wonder if they got into trouble with sampling.
Right.
But I've got it. So
I'll well, apart from that, I'll put that version on. But we put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the podcast with all of the tracks that we've spoken about today, Stephen. And so let's get back to your music and the reissue, and what can people expect from that, and when's it happening, and what else is going to be happening around that?
Well, I haven't done interviews for a long time because we haven't toured for a while. So it's been nice. There's been a lot of interest, I think, and because it's album day tomorrow. Is it today or today? Is it today?
14th, I believe.
14th, right? Yeah. So it's all converging on that. But there's extra tracks on there as well, and tracks that I knew about and tracks I'd forgotten about. So that's been the biggest pleasure. There's getting all the tapes from the studio recordings. Yeah, and it's weird. There's people, people are always going to gravitate towards You're Gorgeous, but there's songs on there like Jesus Is My Girlfriend, which caused quite a lot of trouble in the past. Too Handsome to Be Homeless is another one. So there's a lot of gritty stuff on there, which I'm probably lyrically prouder of. And you've been fantastic not to mention You're Gorgeous. I brought it up, which is the first. But you listen to the verses on that, and it's completely dark and cuts you to the core, I hope. And if anyone points to you at a wedding and to You're Gorgeous, and lots of people play at their wedding, it's an insult. If I point at you and go You're Gorgeous, it's a barb. But people shouldn't be told how to interpret songs. It's if they love it and it's got that ridiculously catchy tune, on the Marmite song, it's what can I say? It's they should interpret it the way they want.
I mean, it's a fantastic record. I prefer the other version on the flip side, the more synthy one.
Oh yeah. There's a few versions. Yeah, I prefer all those. there's a country and western acoustic one.
Oh right, no, I've not heard that.
Makes it really mournful.
Yeah.
So, but I know the one you're talking about. I like that one as well. Yeah. There's an epic one as well, but there's quite a few versions. And the one when I put out these first lo-fi albums before Ugly Beautiful, so before anyone knew who Babybird was,
Yeah.
it was from 400 demos, those albums, and You're Gorgeous was one of those demos, and it never made it onto those. So it was never a choice of mine. It was chosen because of its chorus, I think, and you know, it did what it was supposed to for the record company.
Fantastic. And new music coming soon? Gigs? What's
Yeah,
happening?
I'm on Bandcamp all the time. So you say prolific. There's if people want to listen to 10,000 songs, that's on my Bandcamp. There's shitloads of stuff
I
on
can
there.
tell you who does. He's Dom Jolly, because he come on this podcast.
Oh yeah,
and he loves you, mate. He
yeah.
absolutely loves you. He
Yeah.
was he could not sing your praises, and yeah, he's a very, very big fan. I presume you know that anyway, but
Yeah, he's we've collaborated on stuff, and I think
yeah,
Trigger Happy
of
is
course,
on there. So no, Dom's fantastic. We were supposed to play his 50th birthday
yeah,
thing, but I had a problem. I had a problem with my heart actually, so I couldn't do it, which is a real pity. But I think there's possibilities of stuff coming up.
yeah,
He's great. Trigger Happy was wonderful with the big phone in the cinema. I mean, you know,
incredible,
legendary bit.
incredible. And Stephen, if people want to keep up to speed with all things creative via you, where's the best place to do that?
Well, Bandcamp. So it's the stephenjones.bandcamp.com. But if you put Stephen Jones or Babybird or whatever, you'll find it on there. And good luck getting through this. There's a hell of a lot of stuff on there. I use a lot of AKAs, so you know it's for different types of music I do.
Yeah.
You know, with vocals, non-vocals. So yeah, but it's yeah, just stick a pin in the donkey and see what you come out with.
Fantastic. Stephen, honestly, thanks so much for your time today. It's
Yeah,
been
thank
a
you.
real joy talking records with you, mate.
Thank you.
I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.